Hello, and welcome to today's WTA webinar. This is a webinar presented by WTA's Technology Advisory Board on the recent WTA report, It's Alive, How Innovation Enables Success in a Changing Video Distribution Market. My name is Randall Barney. I'm Director of Certification and Membership for the World Teleport Association, and I'm joined today by Robert Bell, who is Executive Director for the association. What we do every day is advocate for the interests of teleport operators, as well as promoting the excellence in their operations, their technology, and their business practices. Our webinar today is based on a report that is available on our website of the same title, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment. The Technology Advisory Board was formed to address the rising challenges and opportunities that our leading members feel are really changing the nature of the game. The purpose of the board is to give them guidance. What are the most important advances you need to keep your eye on? What are some of the appropriate technologies for the kind of needs you have? Membership of the advisory board is open to industry patron and leader members. If you want more information on this, send an email to me at rbarney@worldteleport.org. Today's agenda. After this introduction, we're going to cover some key insights from the published report, and then we'll launch into a discussion with today's panelists. I would also like to thank our industry leader members who make possible our research reports and webinars. They are Eutelsat, Intelsat, Kratos, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, and SES. I'll now turn this over to Robert Bell to discuss key takeaways from the report.
And thank you, Randall. Appreciate it very much and welcome. This report, I have to say, was a real eye-opener for us because we think of the data side of this business as undergoing tremendous change, and of course it is. But you kind of ain't seen nothing yet until you've been in the media side of this business, and we'll be exploring that more. Could you put up the first point there, Randall? This industry is facing just an ever-changing set of demands from its end users, and that is driving very, very rapid change. Customers today need their service providers to deliver every form of content in every way to end users in a constantly evolving marketplace. So technology solutions are multiplying, the prices are declining, contract durations are shrinking, and meanwhile, customers are demanding that new channels get launched in a matter of days, not a matter of months. And that means the pressure is on everybody to manage CapEx downward and to match OpEx to revenue while driving innovation forward, right? So there's a set of challenges that anybody would like to step up to with, shall we say, a fast beating heart. There is good news, however. Software is replacing hardware along the delivery chain, and that means virtualization from hardware into software, rapid adoption of the cloud after a number of years where media was a lagging part of that movement. Those are all equipping operators to rise to the challenges of change. With that transformation, of course, comes, unfortunately, rising complexity. And it's taking place in a market where transmission runs the gamut from satellite to CDNs to mobile networks, and probably something I haven't even mentioned. And that means that the teleport workforce has got to adapt to the future. There is obviously a declining need for RF expertise, which is matched by an exploding demand for IP and cloud skills. Engineers can find themselves in an awkward position. They can be stranded with a high load of administrative tasks, trying to meet that cascade of change requests. And they really need automation and reorganization to make the most of the skills that they're actually bringing to the table as engineers. Sales teams, on the other hand, have to be selling a much broader range of capabilities, and they have to be able to adapt to those new customer demands at speed, which can be quite a challenge every single day. Satellites, well, when you look at the topic, it's alive. What we're referring to, of course, is yes, satellites are in this business and are going to be in it for the long haul because of that great one-to-many economic advantage they have, right? They'll be doing that for a very long time. To capture that value, the satellite operators will continue to verticalize their operations, and that's going to raise the competitive threat for everybody who's in the ground segment side of this business. On the other hand, and that's a story that's been going on for quite some time, it's a tough business to do well, and their success in that as vertical operators of everything is by no means assured. And the sort of last takeaway is sums it all up. The future getting a lot harder to predict. Some companies are engaged right now in very sophisticated planning exercises, trying to envision the market and their services 5 years, 10 years out. Others are saying our planning horizons are shrinking. The only thing we really know is that flexibility and agility are going to be the things that help us survive and thrive. And so that's what we're focusing on, becoming truly, truly agile operators in here. So those are the key ideas. There's a lot of detail, a lot of great insight within the report itself. So I do encourage you to get a hold of that. It is free for WTA members and is available for purchase by non-members. But let's go to our panel. So if you go to the next slide there, Randy, thank you. We have three very, very appropriate speakers for you, people who've been in the trenches on this for a long time. And they are Eddie Ferraro, who is Managing Director of Globecast Americas. And perhaps you'd put up his picture. We have Javier Izquierdo, who is the Director of Hispasat Peru, and also Stephen Sonnen, Vice President of Product Marketing at Skyline Communications, which is very, very deep into the technology side of this business. So welcome, all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get into this discussion because there is a lot to cover. So first, just a sort of a big generic, I'm sorry, before I do that, I have to remind you that if you have questions, we do have a questions panel, a chat panel, basically. We'll be monitoring that throughout, and as you have questions, we'll try to work those into the conversation. So, onward now. So for all three of you, what has changed over the past 5 years in terms of media customer needs, in terms of the requirements for distribution and contribution? And Eddie, let's just start with you.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. The last 5 years, I mean, I guess you know, first we want to set the bar that Globecast around the world, and especially here in the Americas, our core mission, our core goal is to, you know, manage and deliver premier video content on a permanent or an occasional use basis. So if we understand what markets we're addressing, what's changed over the past 5 years? Well, you know, we, you know, being the service provider, have, you know, we've sort of had to follow the trend, starting, I guess, at the top. The top, you would say, it's the trend in how consumers are consuming television these days, and that's changed. So the core takers or affiliates or distributors that our customers, the content owners, are delivering to has changed. There's been, you know, it's gone from traditional pay TV to cable, satellite, to, you know, all sorts of streaming platforms. So we've had to be able to be agile and to address our customers' needs. Where, you know, for now, if we're delivering a linear channel to the U.S. market, it's not just a turnaround on the satellite. It's not just a turnaround on satellite and maybe a direct fiber somewhere. It's you know, 6 or 7 different streaming platforms that we're having to deliver to now that all have varying onboarding specs for delivery, varying, you know, SCUDdy ad insertion markers. So we've had to adapt, and we're doing that. But it's been a really intense last, say, 5 years with the change that we've had to adapt to. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Eddie, just take a moment because I forgot to do this at the beginning. Just tell us very briefly about Globecast.
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. So Globecast is a wholly owned subsidiary of Orange Business Services, who is owned by the global telecom behemoth Orange, based out of France. Globecast Americas is the North American, or I should say the North and South American operation and commercial entity that's part of a much larger group. So yeah, so we're delivering content in all ways, shapes, or forms, taking it in from around the world and putting it up or sending it around the U.S. And then we're also taking U.S. content owners and delivering them, handing them off to likely our other entities around the world.
All right, excellent. Javier, could you tell us just a little bit about, first of all, Hispasat Peru, but also tell us the answer to this, what you've seen there as changing over the past 5 years in media customer needs and their requirements for distribution?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this panel. Hispasat Peru is part of the Hispasat group. Hispasat is one of the satellite companies, and we are mainly focused from Peru. We are mainly focused from the delivery of the DTH services and some kind of distribution and contribution for channels. And also now we are just starting to be involved in OTT services. So for us, what has changed in the last 5 years, as Eddie says, a lot of things, because perhaps in the old times, some client comes and the only thing that you need to do is to put on the satellite and no more than that. It was simple, and they don't ask for any other thing. Now they have a much more complex needs. In one side, as you said also, Robert, they ask for something that is going not to be like a 5 years time contract. It's going to be something that is going to be short term. It's going to have a need for covering different delivery or different clients. So at the end of the day, you need to add the satellite with the SRT, with the fiber. I mean, you need to put all together. So at the end of the day, you need to have a much more complex solution. And at the same time, you need to be involved with this client. At the end of the day, they need to be part of the problem. I mean, the part of the problem that they have to sell the signal, not part of the problem that you're solving the problem for them, but you are just part of this, taking the capex into opex and all these kind of things that they are going to pay you as the business grow for them. So all these kind of things together has been the one that has just been new in the last 5 years.
Well, customers are always part of the problem. Javier, just to put a little context around this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just recently saw a statistic that said that in Latin America in general, and I think it was Peru in specific, you've got about half of the average adoption of broadband services that we would see in a North American market or a European market. Is that about right?
Yeah, that there is a long way to take from here, still from the broadband. Yeah, we are still based in the satellite, or the satellite for the delivery of signal is still a must if you want to be in all the different customer or client that you need to reach. Your signal needs to reach.
Right. Okay. So you have an emerging economy, but obviously, like everywhere else, it's growing fast. So just to set the stage, Stephen. Well, good to see you again. Your company is one that is striving to help the other two gentlemen on this panel actually manage all of this chaos. So could you tell us a little bit about Skyline Communications and also this question of the change in media customer needs and requirements for distribution and contribution?
Exactly, and thanks for that introduction, Robert. Hi, everybody. Indeed, with Skyline Communications, we focus exactly on empowering teleport operators, but also telcos, satellite operators, media companies in general, to become a better and more digital organization. And that's our mission. With Skyline, we offer basically three values. I would say the first one is the data miner product and platform. That's a product that is very well known. We have a global presence with data miner, and that's basically a platform that we now have connected to the cloud as well to further improve the operations. So that's the first thing that we focus on. The second thing is we focus quite a bit on having the talent in-house that really understands what the operational needs are from teleport operators and beyond. And that can translate that into setting up a real state-of-the-art operational environment. And that's the second thing that we focus on. And the third thing, and that may become a topic of the call and the panel here today, we also focus quite a bit on making sure that the customers we work with, including teleport operators, of course, understand how agile an environment really is nowadays. So we adopted agile methodologies as a software company since long, and we now focus also to make sure that we share that knowledge and expertise with our customers as we deploy projects. So that's Skyline in a nutshell, I would say. Many customers know us from Dataminer, of course, and that's a one-to-one relationship, meaning we only have one product as a company. That means we're extremely focused in what we want to achieve.
Got it. It's a yeah, it's a fascinating world where you have to worry about the things that you're worrying about. Okay, well let's go to a related topic, which is, in this changing market, what technologies are in less demand than they were, and what new demands? I'm sorry, that's the wrong question. The question I want to ask you is, are you selling to different customers? And are you engaging in different kinds of strategic partnerships in order to make that happen? And Stephen, since we've just spoken with you, why don't we ask you that question?
Yeah, I mean, is it different from our relationship with teleport operators? Our relationship is definitely different. Whereas a couple of years ago, we would look at a teleport operation mainly from a monitoring and control perspective. Teleports were much simpler than they are today. Managing the baseband, so to speak, managing the RF and the antennas and the environmental, that was kind of the scope. If you now look at teleports, I mean, they're way different. The way they're built is way different compared to before. They're basically data centers. They're much more complicated. They're much more complicated to operate and maintain. And a lot of teams have to work together to keep the infrastructure up and running. We used to work only with operations teams. Now we work with engineering, operations teams, IT teams, and increasingly through DevOps teams. So is it different from our relationship to teleport operators? Definitely it is. We are engaged much more in a partnership level because the whole thing is just more complex than ever before. Is it new to us as a company? A little bit less, I would say, because as I mentioned, our customer base is not only teleport operators, we also work with the largest telcos you can think of, so to speak. So we have a lot of expertise on the telco side, on the broadcast side as well, that we can bring into the mix here. So yes, the relationship to teleport operators has changed. In general, I think the market is all moving into the same direction.
Javier, how about you? What are you selling to different customers, and are the partnerships that you have to have in place different from what they were 5 years ago?
I mean, we are selling to different customers, yeah, because before we only selling some broadcaster and some telco company. Now they are approaching many other companies like ASPs that they want to deliver the signal, or fiber companies, even some private company that never has been any relationship with this world, and now they are coming to understand and trying to get something from this. So there is a lot of new customer. The relationship with all the customer, even the old ones, has changed. As I said before, most of them are asking more than a situation or a contract between supplier and client to have something of partnership. I mean, we are together, we have to share some risks. So this also is evolving. Most of our client is asking for this. And in the side of our suppliers or our partners in the technology, also, this is something that is evolving and is appearing new companies that were not at this at this market, and now is becoming part of it. And we can be aware, all of us, about the Amazon and all these other that are offering many things. And we are trying to do something similar, to do this partnership and to try to develop more complete services. I mean, at the end of the day, also the one thing that we are just receiving for our customer, they want one-stop shopping. They want all from one source. And with all, I mean all. Could be any kind of crazy idea also coming there, and we need to provide this as part of the solution.
Yep, the famous one throat to choke. Always sounds like such a grim phrase, but it's a pretty powerful one. Eddie, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. We're absolutely selling to different types of clients and customers today versus 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we were kind of focused just on linear TV networks, broadcasters. Now we're much more focused on platforms as well, streaming platforms, sports leagues, sports associations. Because we have such a wider toolbox of technologies to offer and services, where our client or potential client list has grown as well. And then on the partnership side, we're absolutely partnering with companies that we wouldn't have maybe thought 5 years ago. Some companies that maybe didn't even exist 5 years ago, but we're buying and selling from, we're buying from and selling to a number of different frenemies in the business. A lot of our creative partnerships were driven, I should say, by the C-band repack over the past few years. With satellite capacity for the C-band market in the US sort of drying up a little bit, we've had to get really creative in how we still can address the market with less capacity. The days of just leasing a transponder and hoping to fill it at some point, those days are kind of over. So yeah, it's the last 5 years have seen a tremendous amount of change in who we sell to, who we buy from, who we partner with. It's, to stay technology agnostic, which we need to do as a service provider. You got to have relationships, sort of all over the industry. So that's what we're attempting to succeed at.
Well, so to be agnostic gets harder every year. That's an interesting insight. One of the things I've always loved about business is that markets push you to do things that you don't want to do, and then you discover what a brilliant idea they were.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is actually, to me, one of the most dramatic stories that's affecting our whole industry, which is that we are moving from being these little siloed players doing very specific things in a pretty static market to evolving into real ecosystem players where we realize that, and that's where all the dynamism has come from. That's where all the good stuff is coming from, as well as all the chaos. Let's just take a moment and talk about technology. Some technologies are in less demand, some are in bigger demand, and without drilling down into it too deep, what's up and what's down in terms of the technology stack that you have to provide to customers. And I guess let me start, Eddie, let's start with you and we'll just circle back.
Well, unfortunately, satellite capacity is in less demand from the media and entertainment perspective than it was a number of years ago. That's driven by there's a number of reasons. You could pinpoint why that is the case. What's in higher demand are delivery mechanisms using public internet, adopting different types of protocols for these means to distribute, the ability to kind of get deeper into the media management and delivery of the media is becoming more prevalent. And I mean by that, what I mean by that is just an example, delivering a linear channel to cable operators, and then having to deliver that same linear channel to a number of streaming platforms that have all different specs, like I mentioned before, not just for delivery, but also for ad insertion. So we're having to get sort of deeper into the media management side of things, and now we're all in the cloud. Everything's for us is sort of cloud native. So all you put this all in a big a big basket, and it's a lot of different technologies to manage. But yeah, I'd say we've seen the satellite piece of our business sort of in less demand than it has been in the last 5 years, for sure.
Yeah, no surprising. Javier, I'm going to skip over you for a moment because I just want to bring in our technologist. Okay, so Stephen, you're seeing this obviously, and you're having to help manage it. What technologies are your customers using less of, and what's really hot right now in terms of service delivery?
Well, if I look at indeed the infrastructure and the teleport itself, it used to be canned boxes, so to speak. And I was explain that like you may have, like say, a compression encoder, and that box would come with a clear leaflet saying exactly what it would do and how performant it would be. Today, and it was already touched upon, given the level of flexibility and agility and scalability that people need, teleports do not only contain these traditional hardware boxes anymore, encoders, transcoders, the baseband, and so the RF and so forth, but equally well, that infrastructure is extended with data center technology and furthermore, cloud technologies, and that may come ad hoc on demand, so to speak. So from our perspective, managing that entire infrastructure, that's become really a challenge. And what we do and what we bring to teleport operators is really a platform that can reduce that complexity. I'll give a very simple example. If, for instance, you have a cloud service, it could be an EC2 instance on AWS, just being able to see on the spot which channel is being transcoded on there. That's sometimes a huge thing. We resolve these things just like very quickly. I just had another example this afternoon. I mean, if you look on an IP, big router, so to speak, everybody has router spine leaves in their infrastructure nowadays. Just looking as an IT engineer in the IP routing table and seeing immediately, look, that multicast is in fact, that's a Fox channel or that's a CNN channel. Just looking at it and seeing that type of information on the spot is so vital nowadays. So what we bring in terms of reducing that complexity almost has become table stakes. So what we bring as a product is really much more elaborate than it used to be before. But in addition to that, and it was touched upon before, I mean, if you look at, for instance, the supply chain, there's so much more tenants involved. There's more customers, there's more SaaS providers, there's cloud providers. I mean, there's so much parties to manage. So what we do as a solution provider is we focus a lot on, let's say, bringing collaboration tools into play. Collaboration tools where teleport operators can online communicate with their suppliers, can online share data with their suppliers, can report certain events, alarms, incidents in real time to their suppliers and or business customers. So collaboration is a big focus on what we see in the demand of our customers.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Again, it's the ecosystem at work. Javier, so you, excuse me, Javier, you are in a position where you have to maintain a robust DTH platform and serve those customers, and yet you also have to respond to this new set of customer demands. So what are you seeing coming forward in terms of technology, and perhaps what's receding in the same terms?
In the technology, you mean?
In the
At the
technology.
end of the day, that the thing that we are just looking at is that we are just becoming not a teleport, a hub of service. I mean, we are just providing service, as Eddie says, and Steven, that is more than the satellite. The satellite is declining, and even in us, that we are just providing DTH here in Latin America, that still has room for this service for a period. We are looking, we are just receiving this requirement for the streaming platform that provide service for them to do some other kind of services. So we are preparing all our infrastructure to incorporate, to have all this technology on board and to mix the cloud with the in-house equipment. So at the end of the day, we are just having a much more complex environment. So as Steven said, we need some tools that help us to manage this in a proper way, in the sense that we can be flexible enough for making movement from satellite to streaming to fiber, whatever is the requirement.
Well, now all this stuff costs money. And so I'm curious about how, as you need to deal as being technology agnostic, as Eddie said, becomes a bigger job every year. How are your investment priorities needing to shift? And I'm going to start with you, Javier, in terms of, all the capex that we're used to spending on equipment in our facilities versus OpEx, cloud-based, similar services. Where are you seeing that going?
I mean, we are trying to combine. I mean, we are at the end of the day that we are just trying to have the best of both worlds. I mean, in one side, we are still in doing the investment in equipment when we see that this is the right way, because we see that is the more is the best for the service, and at the same time, we are taking the advantage of the cloud. So all those things that we consider that we can just keep on the cloud, we are just taking this as a solution by default, and again combining both of them. I mean, we are just trying as why, as we said, because our client is asking us to be as much in OpEx side as possible. So if we want to be in such a way without doing an investment that could kill us, we need also to combine these both environment.
Yeah, and it's tricky. I mean, the usual path on this is that you study it, you figure out what it is you want, and then you wait for that moment when you need to replace something, and that's when you step into it that way. Is that kind of the world you're living in?
Yeah, yeah. The only thing that we have not been able to move to the cloud has been the antennas. We are
Hey, when you figure that out, let us know.
Yeah, antenna manufacturers. Looks like things are good for
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Eddie, let's go to you and the same question. So you've got, you're constantly having to make investments, but you're constantly having to figure out what can I virtualize, what makes sense to virtualize, and how do I deal with the OpEx that adds?
Yeah, well, I mean, more revenue always helps, but we made the leap into the cloud, specifically supporting our master control and play out operation a little over 2 years ago at this point. It was a challenging effort, but we're through it. And now we're super flexible. Yes, we have an OpEx model. We pay software and public cloud operators a monthly bill. I can tell you that it's a lot easier. It's been a lot easier to have conversations with my leadership without having to ask for more money for capex for opportunities that maybe are a 1 or 2 year contract, because as you mentioned earlier, Robert, customers are much more conservative in what they will actually even commit to in a term. So our capex spend, the need for capex has diminished over the past couple of years, but we still need to invest, and we're still always looking at technologies that are driven around broadcast standards, future broadcast standards, and we just need to collectively be clever and thoughtful how we invest in the business. We try to treat this like it's our own bank account. But in general, CapEx requests have gone down, our OpEx has gone up. But we're at a place where we're super flexible, and not just supporting what we can today out of Culver City where our operation is, but because we're in the cloud, it gives us, enables us to have a lot more sort of mechanisms and tools to be able to drive maybe revenue streams that are in different regions. Yeah, it's we still have to stay on top and invest, but everything we're investing in these days has to have some sort of virtualization to it, or ability to get there. So that's where we are.
Stephen, I mean, Skyline is a cloud-first company and has been for quite a while. And you used to work for a box manufacturer, a very excellent one now, ST Engineering iDirect. And there is this constant issue of how do we get that business model to work so that we can still make money providing a virtualized software solution as opposed to a box. So I wonder if you could maybe give us a little bit of insight, and this is not about your current business, about that decision making that goes on in the hardware side of this business.
Yeah, and that's an interesting question, and it kind of ties to the topic that was put on the table here a couple of times already. Looking at the technology, it was mentioned, okay, we want to be vendor agnostic as much as possible. And that's been there since long and since ever. I mean, if I look at it from an operational perspective, I mean, the wish has always been for teleport operators and any telco out there to be technology agnostic and to be able to switch vendors in case of problems, pricing issues, whatever it is. So that remains in place. But what I would like to add, and that ties into the migration to cloud, if you go into a software environment and specifically also a cloud environment, instead of buying this entire box, all of a sudden you buy a function. And it's as much a question that I have to Eddie and Javier here, but buying a function is totally different compared to buying a box with an SLA to it and all of that. And what we see really as a key difference compared to before is that migration to the cloud is basically putting the constraint and the responsibility to the teleport operators itself to make sure that all these components, all these functions operate well together. So there's a kind of a system integration effort that needs to happen with companies nowadays. It's not just powering on the box, it's really designing and developing and operating a complex infrastructure with different components from different vendors. So what we see as a primary change into migration to cloud is that organizations, teleport operators, are kind of put in a position to all of a sudden become software companies with DevOps teams, engineering teams, to really put the things together. And I'm not sure if that resonates with Eddie or Javier. It would be interesting to get that feedback, but I see that as the biggest challenge. In terms of the business models, from our perspective, I can elaborate on that, but our basic business model is not to move existing functionality just as is into the cloud. There's little added value to it. We focus as a company to create new services on top of what we have. Things like real-time data sharing, API deployments, and so on. I can elaborate on that further, but maybe it would be interesting to see and elaborate a little bit more on the DevOps aspects and how that ties into the technology selection with teleport operators.
Well, I agree with you very much so. I was going to ask a question about what the sort of big challenges are, and here's one. I find this fascinating because this is very much like self-service at your grocery store or your bank. You know, hey, you're the one running it now, so now it's your responsibility. So, Javier, that's a very interesting thing. You're buying a function, not a box, and in so doing, you are making yourself responsible for it actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. Is that something that your company has grappled with?
I mean, buying something now that is just a function and it's something that we need to make it work and it's a different than in the past. And as I said, Steven, it's not the same to move one thing that we have in hardware to the cloud. And we need to have even different kind of people in the sense that they are have a different knowledge. They don't need to forget. I didn't need to have this RF and video knowledge, but they need to add all the other kind of the software, and not only to understand the IP and the cloud, to know about the software. Sometimes it's just some kind of mix that is just difficult to find because it's something new. But we try to manage all this, doing this kind of thing, doing adding new people with different kind of profile that is helping us also to do this kind of evolution, to change the mind of the, even to create new services that come from nothing or could be an added value that you didn't see in the past. All this info, all this data that you get from your system now, you are able to get a lot of info. You can just transform into a new service for our client and something that is helping them to develop their own business.
Yeah, that's that is very, very, very interesting. It's I think it was the CEO of Kratos just recently did an earnings announcement, and one of the things that he said was that they're actually seeing an impact in the results from the problem of hiring the right people at the right price. So you're pointing that out. Eddie, how about you? So here we are in this world where we've got to suddenly take responsibility for things in the software area instead of being able to plug a box into our system and running its startup routine. How does that affecting you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on what Steven said about, buying a function and not necessarily a bot. That, that is pretty powerful, because we're oftentimes doing that now, and layering these new types of, services or workflows for an existing client, because it's driven by them delivering to a new virtual MVPD, or delivering to a new just some kind of a new platform. It just being, and having the capability of being in the cloud, just, it speeds up that process. And it just has given us the ability to be just much more flexible. It's also driven our team to be much more software minded, like we were saying before as well. But it's had definitely that's had an impact on our business the last few years, for sure. So
Interesting. Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's a big topic. The handoff of responsibility. My last question for you is maybe an interesting one, but we've been talking so much about change. What hasn't changed in the fundamental business of providing the services that a media customer, now in all of their huge variety, require? Eddie, what's the same about this business as it's been since the
Well,
1970s or 80s?
I mean, I think the client's expectation for reliability and 4 and 5 nines of reliability from an operations perspective hasn't changed. Also, having all these services and capabilities available at a competitive price hasn't changed. That I think that's continually we're getting pressure for more flexible pricing, but having moved to an OpEx based environment, it's given us the ability to be a little bit more creative in how we look at commercial deals. And then term commitment has also become a little more challenging. The notion of a 5-year contract or a 7-year contract just doesn't, it's not really happening these days. So we've had to be flexible commercially, as much as we've had to be flexible on the technology and operation side. That's not changed. That's not changed from our perspective.
I can remember many people, maybe 10, 15 years ago in this business, complaining that in the media side of business, we were busy training the viewers to accept a lower and lower and lower level of quality.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that true?
gone now.
It's gone now. Oh, so now everything. Okay, that's gone now. Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I
that's
mean, yeah, it's the expectation, the expectation is still there, you have to deliver, 24/7.
24/7
Um,
pristine quality. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Javier, what about from where you are in Peru? What hasn't changed about the business?
The thing that hasn't changed is flexibility. The client is still asking for flexibility. They need to have, we need to be able to provide them what they want at the moment that they want. So this is still right, still in something that they are requiring. Quality, as Eddie says, they even if they are just asking for better prices, they ask for the same kind of quality, at least in the sense of the customer. This is, I'm not talking about the viewer. The viewers are just receiving what they are receiving because they are just having many other uh, transmission media to receive the content. And apart from that, yes, at the end of the day, is one is the, as I said, the client usually has to ask for having a complete solution, and they're still asking that we need to provide it with the whole solution because they are looking for the coverage and they are looking for reaching the customer that they want to reach. And this is the thing that hasn't changed. The rest is new technology, new way to do that, but the thing is that getting the max for the money that they get, they pay for the service.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I blame the consumer electronics industry because they taught us that whatever it is that whatever we're getting today is going to be cheaper next year. So,
That's it. That's it.
Stephen, last word to you on this. What hasn't changed amidst all the technology and operational and human factor changes in the business?
Well, what did not change is basically our mission, and our mission is to make an efficient and fun operational environment. What that means is, I mean, that's been since in place since ever. I mean, we want to make sure that teleport operators can operate cheaper, faster, and deliver better services. That's very easy, and that hasn't changed over time. It's just the way and the way we meet those requirements and the products that we bring as a technology provider to just achieve that are way different than before. Cheaper nowadays, as an example, means effective resource scheduling. It means having the ability to seamlessly pull in cloud resources instead of your on-prem resources. So the way we act and the way we fill it in is completely different. Faster means a lot of automation and many flavors of automation, going from simple resource scheduling and automation to complex service orchestration for highly repeat activities. So faster nowadays means something different for us compared to the past, but it's still faster. Better used to be better user experience, better quality by monitoring, etc. Nowadays, it's about having better digital integration with suppliers, incident workflows that are automated, work order workflows that are automated, plant maintenance that is in sync with the service lineups. And we have a lot of new technologies behind that, collaboration tools, data sharing, data miner object models, business process automation. I mean, these are all acronyms that 2 years ago I would never have touched upon because simply we didn't have them. But just because better, faster, cheaper remains in place, but requires a different way to handle those, is what has been driving behind all those new technology components that we put on the market.
Nicely put. Mission same, way we accomplish that mission could not be more different. So I'm going to leave it there and turn back to Randall Barney to close us out. But I would want to just thank Stephen. I want to thank you, Javier. And I want to thank you, Eddie, for spending some time with us and sharing these insights into a remarkably complex and fast-changing business. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us. Thanks.
Yes, thank you all. And please do fill out the short survey at the end of this webinar. And if you're a WTA member, you can download the full report on our website. Coming up, I'll be at Space Tech Expo next week in Bremen. I'll be doing moderating a panel on Wednesday called the All Singing, All Dancing Antenna.
which I would like to see the visuals from that if you send those along.
And upcoming reports coming up very soon. Next week, how to win business from a telco or MNO. And in January, how green is my teleport? Thank you again to all our panelists, and thank you for attending today's webinar.
All right, take care, everybody. Be safe out there. Look forward to seeing you for our next webinar.